So whether the slides are visible to everyone? Gautam? Slides are
Sir?
visible? This slide? Very good.
Yes, sir.
So everything is all right. Fine. We'll start. So what did we learn in the last class? Who is going to tell that? What did we
Complex
learn?
numbers.
Ah, very good. Who is that? Introduce yourself and then tell. Who is that speaking? What else we learned in the last class? Srivatsan or Santosh? Gayatri? Who is talking? Gayatri K. You have a mic with you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Gayatri. Please tell me what did we learn in the last class?
Impulse of basis norm of the vector.
Okay. None of the vector then.
And the orthonormal basis. Impulse
Okay.
of basis.
Okay. Okay. So impulse as a basis function we also learned. So what did you understand by decomposition? Decomposition of any waveform using impulse. What did you understand? Anybody from the group? What did you understand by the term decomposition of any signal using impulse? Okay. Okay.
Sir,
Yeah, please proceed. Please give your opinion. Yeah, your idea. Who is that? Yeah, please continue. Somebody just wanted to tell something. Satyarayana. What is decomposition? The question that I raised is what is decomposition?
Splitting into many, dividing into many things.
splitting into constituent parts.
Constituent parts is a key term. Okay, so you are trying to look at a signal from as a combination, as a linear combination, right term. Okay, as a linear combination of impulse signals, and you need to identify the coefficients required to represent the linear combination by going for a dot product. Okay, so that's what we learned in the that's the key takeaway point in the last class. So we looked at the signal. Okay, looked at a signal from the vector perspective. Okay, so we discussed something related to basis vectors. Basis vectors basically using the basis vector as a linear combination of the basis vectors, you can represent any vector in a particular dimension. Okay, if it is R2 dimension, you can have a very standard orthonormal basis, which is nothing but 1, 0, 0, 1. Okay, for any orthonormal, this is orthonormal. Why it is orthonormal? It is basically the length of the vector is going to be equal to 1, and they are orthogonal too. Okay, if you take the dot product of these two, you are going to get 0. Okay, so dot product and unit vector, this two you keep it in mind. Orthonormal. Okay, once you get the orthonormal basis, your algorithm will become much more powerful. Okay, that's why finding out orthonormal basis is a big problem in research problem in many areas. Okay, particularly linear systems analysis. Finding out an appropriate orthonormal basis is a good area to explore. Okay, so and we know that we can represent any vector x as a combination of this kind of orthonormal basis. And in order to find out the coefficients, you take the vector as a whole and multiply and take the dot product with one particular vector v1 and the same vector with respect to the second vector v2, take the dot product, and you're going to get the corresponding coefficients. Okay, for a simple case like 3, 2, this particular vector 3, 2. Okay, this can be represented as a linear combination of 1, 0, 0, 1. It's quite obvious, isn't it? 2 times of 1, 0 and 3 times of 0. It's a linear combination you can write. So in order to get this 2 and 3, what we are doing, we are taking the x as a whole multiplied with the corresponding this vector, what you call basis vector. But this is very trivial for 1, 0 case. But for all other basis vector, unless you get the dot product, it will not be quite visible. This coefficient will not be directly seen. Okay, for this case, it is directly seen 2 and 3. We can directly identify. But for all other cases, if these vectors are different from the unit vectors, orthonormal vectors, it's difficult to exactly tell that value 2 and 3. Okay, these coefficients need to be identified using this dot product, inner product. Okay, this inner product. Okay, that's what we learned in the last class. That is applicable for n dimensions also. Okay, so now we are going to view the corresponding basis vector as an impulse signal, as a combination of impulses. Okay, so if that is the case, the impulses existing between minus infinity to plus infinity. So by changing the k value, I can right shift and left shift. I can right shift and I can left shift by changing that k value. So thereby I can create a set of impulses, and I will be calling that as my basis. And using that basis, I can represent any discrete waveform. This discrete signal like this. For example, 3, 2, 1. If I want to represent it, I can write that signal x of n as a linear combination of these impulses. Okay, and I need to compute again the coefficients. How do I compute? Once again by taking the what? The dot product. Take the x of n signal as such, and then take one impulse. Okay, keep the value k. For what value of k you are going to identify? For example, c of -1 I want to identify. The coefficient -1. What is that? This one. This one I want to identify. Then what do I choose? I'll choose my k as equal to -1. If I choose k is equal to -1, what happens? If I put plug in k equal to -1 here, what do I get? I get n plus 1 delta. So naturally, x of n, the whole signal multiplied by delta n plus 1, it is more like shifting property again I'm applying. You know that shifting. We learned about shifting. Using impulse, you can plug out one particular place. So naturally, I'm going to get only x of k here. Okay, x of k I can get back here. That's the idea. So x of k is what? The particular waveform, this particular coefficient. That value I'll be getting. So naturally, for x of n, for this signal 3, 2, 1, what do I get? 3, 2, 1. So naturally, for k equal to 0, this is what I want. C of 0 I want. C of 0 is what? 3 into delta x of n. The whole x of n you are going to multiply. What is x of n? 3, 2, 1, like that. It goes on. Okay, take the dot product of this with all these vectors 0, 0, 0, value at 0 equal to delta n k equal to 0 only value exists. If we take the dot product of it, I'm going to get this is 0. Okay, so at n equal to 0, it's good. Therefore, this is going to get multiplied with this. So I'm going to get 3 out. We're going to multiply. Okay, 3, 2, 1, 0, 0, 0. That's the signal I have. So this I'm multiplying it with what? 0, 0, 0. Exactly at 3, I will have 1. If I take the dot product of these two, I'm going to get 3 out. That's the idea. Okay, so I'm going to get 3 out. See here, so 3 delta n, 2 delta n minus 1, n minus 1 delta n. So I'm going to get the complete combination. So I can add all these signals in order to get back x of n back. By adding all these 3 signals, I got x of n back. But everything you should keep it in mind here. As far as impulse response is concerned, okay. As far as impulse response is concerned, impulse decomposition is concerned, we are acting everything is happening in time domain. We are taking an x of n, we are trying to identify the coefficients. Here it is, minus n. We are trying to identify these coefficients by taking the dot product of this x of n, delta n minus t. Okay, that's what we are doing. Dot product. Video recorded as this. Okay, delta n minus t. Okay, so the idea is, yeah. So this is delta n minus t. that's what we learned. Okay, impulse as a basis. Okay. Take the dot product. This is what we have. C of k delta x of n delta n. So naturally, what we are doing, we are taking the combinations. In order to find out the dot product, what do we need to do? The signal existing. So we take the dot signal. Okay, vary the n from minus infinity to plus infinity. Take the signal x of n delta, okay, n minus k. Can somebody help me out? What will be the value I'll be getting? What will be the coefficient I'll be getting here?
X of k, sir.
No. Think carefully.
Yeah.
Little bit. Think carefully. What are we getting here? Anybody? Do you understand this idea? What is this? What is this I'm trying to do here? Anybody? From the class? Please be very expressive, man. These ideas are very important. So, little bit open up and understand whether you have understood or not. I need to know. Okay. Just give your opinion. What is this we are trying to do here? Anybody from the class? What is x of n? The waveform is like this, discrete waveform. 3, 2, 1. What is delta n minus k? How the signal will exist? This how the signal can be represented? What is delta n first of all? Delta n is like this. Okay. What is delta n minus k? Somewhere for some running parameter k, the signal is going to get exist. Okay, k can be either positive or negative. So some k, somewhere around that, the k is going to be. Then if I'm going to take the dot product of x of n with delta n minus k, what do I get? If I take the dot products, what do I get? Anybody from the class? What's happening? You're not getting the point? Praveen? Sharan? Shivaram?
X of k. X of n.
No. Understand the concepts clearly. What are these values? What are these values? What are these values? They are the coefficients, the weights. Okay. And these weights are going to combine with deltas. Okay, like this. Like this. So in that case, these weights I don't know. I'm trying to compute these weights only. The C1, C2. They are the coefficients, the linear combination I'm talking about. So what I'm trying to do this problem is, you have to imagine like this. This little important idea, that's why I'm spending some time. So basically what I'm trying to do is, I have a signal x of n. I'm trying to represent this waveform. As, okay, as what? As a linear combination. A linear combination of what? Impulse signals. What is linear combination? So you take those signals, delta n minus 1, delta n minus 2. These are all the signals I'm talking about. Delta n minus 3. Okay, it goes on. Okay, it goes on and on. Where it will end at delta infinity. The same manner, other end, delta n plus 1. It goes on. It will end at delta minus infinity. So this is what I said initially. What I said, can you recall the word I used for this kind of combination of impulses? I said train of impulses. Train of impulses. Very good. Train of impulses. So the signal, if you draw that, it's going to be like this, all unit impulses. Okay. The train of impulses or values are all units, unit value, amplitude is 1. So it goes on till infinity here. minus infinity. Now what I am looking for is, I have a signal x of n. That signal I have given to you, 3, 2, 1. Okay, 0, 1, 2. These are all the time instants. So I want to represent this as a linear combination of these impulses. Okay, then I need to know for delta n, what will be the coefficient I require. For delta n plus 1, what will be the coefficient? For delta n minus 1, what is the coefficient? And delta n minus 2, what is the coefficient required in order to represent this x of n as a linear combination of impulses. So x of n as a linear combination of impulses is what I am looking forward to. Okay, so how do I obtain? I said for finding out the coefficients, you need to take the signal x of n, take the dot product with what? Delta n minus k, in order to find a particular coefficient ck. In order to find out the dot product, what do you need to do? Multiply, add. Okay, therefore n equal to minus infinity plus infinity, you multiply the signal. So the signal value may be existing like this. For this case, who the signal value will be existing? Can you think of the signal as a vector now? X of n signal slots like minus infinity, it goes up to infinity. So 0, 0, 0, 0 at exactly n equal to 0, the value is 3, then 1, 2, 1. Then the signal subsides. So this is your x of n. I'm going to take the dot product with what? Can you tell me the signal that's going to be there here? Delta n minus k. Can you tell me the signal?
1, sir.
1 for all for all values from minus infinity plus infinity?
Yes, sir.
Think carefully, man. K is a running parameter. See, n is a running parameter, but k is something constant.
Okay.
Delta n signal is what? This is delta n. What is delta n minus 1? This is delta n minus 1.
2, 1.
So you are trying to compute it for one particular k. Remember that. Okay. So naturally, for example, if I want to compute C0, what will be the k value? K is going to be 0. You agree? Therefore, the signal is going to exist only at n equal to 0. All other values are 1, 0. You understand? N equal to 0, it's going to be 1. All other values. So if I take the dot product of these two, what will be the C0 value will be? Can somebody help me out? What is C0? K is equal to 0. Come on, you guys, open up. What is C0? Huh? What is C0?
3, sir.
Yeah, 3. That's right. Why you are getting confused? I am not sure. What is the problem with this? Okay, little bit think carefully, man. See, look at this. I'm talking about delta n minus k. So delta n minus k is the signal I'm talking about. Okay, and n is the variable that is varying between minus infinity plus infinity. So what kind of a signal I'm talking about here? See here, summation n varying between minus infinity plus infinity. Okay, delta n minus k. Okay, if I'm going to do this for a particular value of k, k is equal to, for example, 0. Then what is this summation? Delta n. Okay, this is a signal I'm talking about. Delta n signal is going to exist only at n equal to 0. Okay, so naturally that's what the value I'll be getting. So ck is a key. So I'm looking at a particular value. Okay, for a particular value of k, I'm looking at. So for example, k is equal to minus 1 if I'm going to put. C of minus 1. Minus k, therefore it's going to be x of n delta n plus 1. You add all those things. Delta n plus 1 exists only at, the signal exists only at this point, minus 1. But there is no signal for x of n at minus 1. Therefore, naturally this product becomes 0. C of minus 1 will become 0. Because x of n signal, how do you define? Like this. 0, 0, 0, 3, 2, 1, 0, 0. You understand it? So that's how your x of n signal is. Everybody understood this idea? Any doubts?
Sir,
Yeah, please.
then C1 will be 2, sir.
Yeah, C1 will be 2, exactly. Very good. C1 will be 2. What is C2? 1. Okay, 3, 2, 1 you'll be getting. That's the linear combination. So if you look at the final waveform, what do you get? Are you getting the point clearly, everybody? You understand the point? So finally, my signal 3, 2, 1 will be represented as all my coefficients are 0 except for these 3 coefficients. What are they? 3, 2, they are the coefficients. C of 0, the C of 1, the C of. You understand this combination clearly? In the same manner, if I am going to have a waveform like this, here, this is 3, this is 3, this is 2, this is 1. Can somebody help me out how to write the corresponding linear combination of delta signals? What is the first value?
3 of delta n plus 1, sir.
That's all. Very good. 3 of delta n plus 1 plus 3 of delta n plus 3 of 2 of delta n minus 1 plus 1 delta n. This is called representing. See, I can have any waveform like this. Okay, I can have negative values also. I can have positive value also. I can have. So how do I get this waveform? I'll be sampling my continuous signal, and I'll be getting this kind of discrete waveforms. So once I get the discrete waveform, I can decompose into its corresponding impulses. And all these
Sir?
impulses, yeah, please.
Then what is the use of inner product, sir?
The
Like,
inner product,
we can-
by looking at it, you can tell for impulses. Okay, but the concept, the mathematics behind is coming from the inner product. Okay, the inner product is this. The C minus 1, how do you get it? How do you get it? For impulses, it's quite easy. Okay, but for Fourier transform and Fourier series, Fourier transformation, you need to work out the dot product in order to get your coefficients. That's what we learned in the last class. I hope you can recall it. Laplace, look at this. See, for impulses basis, when you are talking about impulse basis, okay, what you are trying to do is more like this. It is more like what we are doing is more like this. So I have a waveform I is 1, 0, J is 0, and then I can represent any vector as a linear combination. For example, if it is 2, this is 3, I can represent 3i plus, 2i plus 3j. I can represent any vector. This is my vector. This 2, this 3. So I can represent it, the linear combination. So how did we arrive at this 2 and 3? By taking the inner product ion. Remember, that's what we did. That's why I'm telling again. It's all coming from linear algebra. So, but the key point is, if the I and j, if they are something like this, I and j, they are also orthonormal. Why I said like, why it is called this is also orthogonal. Why? This is nothing but 45 degree shift. Yeah, you understand that. So this is nothing but a 45 degree rotation of the ij. This is my I and j. Originally it was ij like this. Now I have shifted like this. Now in this domain, my vector b is somewhere going to be here. I don't know where it is. What is the linear combination I require? I don't know. I cannot tell just by, for this case I can easily tell 2 times of I and 3 times of j. But if this is going to get rotated like this, I cannot just like it, I cannot tell what is the corresponding I have, what is the corresponding j I have. So I need to carry out the inner product. Then only I can tell the value of these coefficients. You understand the point what I'm saying? This is C1, C2. In order to compute the C1, C2, I need to take the inner product of what? The vector V, okay, which is nothing but 3, 2, 2, 3, along with this first vector, for example, the dot product. Dot product of these two vectors will give me this first coefficient, C1. And then dot product of the second vector with say 2, 3 is going to give me the second coefficient. So you have to understand that clearly. So the basics is clear. Orthogonality, okay, inner product. Basis vectors are all orthogonal and the inner product need to take. For impulses, it's not an issue at all. Just by looking at the signal itself, you can tell what are all the corresponding coefficients. But the basic mathematics is inner product. You understand this now, Manikumar?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Now that's what we learned for if the corresponding basis signals are e power j omega n. Okay, these are all the impulses. Now what are the impulses? What are all the basis signals? Not impulses, sorry, complex exponentials. For these complex exponentials, each omega, when you vary omega, for example, you are going to have one basis. Okay, so these basis vectors, they are all orthogonal to each other, and they are orthogonal only. They are not orthonormal. You have to verify that. Okay, maybe take it as homework and check whether e power j omega n signals with omega 1, omega 2 frequencies, whether they are orthogonal or orthonormal. You know what's the difference between orthogonal and orthonormal? Can somebody tell me? What's the difference between orthogonal and orthonormal? Vectors. Anybody from the class? Anybody from the class? What is orthogonal? What is orthogonality? What is orthonormality? From the class, I'm looking for an answer. You guys are not talking. Open up.
Orthonormal is for V square root of
Funny
V.
Kumar.
Sir, V power T into V star, sir.
Anybody else? What is orthogonality? What is orthonormal? What is orthogonal vectors and what is orthonormal vectors? The question is very clear. Mahalakshmi, Varalakshmi, you guys, are you listening to this lecture properly? I doubt it now, suddenly. You guys are not following that. You need to stop me wherever you feel uncomfortable. I think you are missing out something. What is the difference between orthogonality and orthonormal vectors? Orthogonal vectors and orthonormal vectors. Mohana Priya. Maha Arnachalam. Yeah, please. Maha Arnachalam.
So orthogonal vectors are, they both are perpendiculars and their dot product is 1.
Dot product is 1 or 0?
0, sir. Dot product is 0.
Yeah.
And if the orthogonal vector is a unit vector, then it is known as orthonormal.
Very good. Okay, orthogonal vectors, basically they are perpendicular to each other, and if you take the dot product, the corresponding value, the number what you are going to get is going to be 0. And if you take the length of the vector, okay, if you take the length of the vector, V transpose V square root, and if it is going to be equal to 1, then those vectors are orthogonal as well as they are orthonormal. Keep that in mind. Okay, this is a very important idea. The same manner, okay, look at this case, this e power j omega n, I'm going to take it as a basis vector, and I can work out the corresponding coefficients of it. The coefficient I'm representing like this. So these coefficients, I will be calling it as a discrete time Fourier transformation. Primarily because this x, what I'm going to get is a function of various values of omegas, omega 1, omega 2, like that. Okay, it's a discrete time Fourier transformation expression. And this x of n, I'm taking the dot product with e power j omega n, with n varying between minus infinity to plus infinity. Various frequencies I'm taking. Okay, n varying. Okay, so then finally, if I want to represent my xn back, choose all these coefficients and then integrate over d omega. That's what I'll be doing. Okay, d omega, and this e power j omega n is a corresponding in the basis into the combination vector C1. If you add all those, I'm going to get back my x of n back. This is called inverse discrete time Fourier transformation. Okay, at the same manner, I can do it for continuous time Fourier transformation also. Instead of e power x of n, if I'm going to take the continuous time signal x of t, e power j minus j omega t, I'll be getting c of omega. So this is your continuous time Fourier transformation, the coefficients. And once I get all the coefficients, okay, then I can do this. I can call it as x of omega, c of omega. Instead of that, I will call it x of omega. And then I do it integrated. Okay, for all e power j omega t d omega, I'll get back my x of t. This is called inverse continuous time Fourier transformation. Okay. With this two, then we proceeded to learn about the Laplace and Dirichlet transformation. Okay, that's like this. So here instead of x of t, I'll be having a e power minus alpha t multiplied with x of t sigma. So this can help us to suppress waveforms which are going unbounded. Okay, if it is going something unbounded, I can suppress it, keeping it by this particular signal, e power minus alpha t. So because if the signal is going unbounded, my integration will become, it will not converge. So for convergence purpose, we are clipping it by including this e power minus alpha t. Okay, so that's what we did in the last class. Okay, so again, you try to think about all this. We'll come back again. Okay. So if you look at the kind of complex exponential signals we are talking about, the first signal is e raised to the power some alpha t, okay, with alpha positive value. Just in your notebook, I'll give you 2 minutes time. Try to draw this waveform for alpha equal to positive value. Think about it. Just in your notebook, try to draw this way. How the waveform will look like. E power alpha. Alpha it's going to be positive. It is exponentially increasing. At alpha equal to, for a particular value of alpha greater than 0. Okay, greater any value of alpha, for example, equal to t, equal to 3t, equal to t, you can have any value. At t equal to 0, what happens? E power 0 is 1. Okay, so if it is going to be c e power alpha t, at t equal to 0, what will be the amplitude? Is going to be c. Okay, you understand the point what I'm saying. The amplitude here, this is amplitude. So c here, this is 1 here, therefore I'm getting 1. So this c can be adjusted. This alpha can also be adjusted. This alpha will represent the corresponding transition rate of the exponential waveforms. Look at this carefully. If alpha is equal to minus less than 1, what do I get? Less than 0. E power alpha t, what do I get? This is t. This is e power alpha t. If it is alpha, it is less than 0. What kind of waveform I'll be getting? It's an exponentially decaying. Okay, exponentially decaying. It's called e power alpha t for alpha less than. There are 2 cases. Okay. Now just imagine, instead of a real number raised to that is exponential raised to the real value. Now I'm going to do it for an imaginary value. So what do I get? This is going nothing but, you know, this cos omega t plus j sin omega t. So I'll be getting pure sinusoidal waveform. Okay, this is a pure sinusoidal waveform. Okay, I'll be getting this e power j omega. Now you are combining these two. You understand the point what I'm saying? E power j omega t is a sinusoidal, pure sinusoidal waveform, no damping or no suppression or stretching or suppression, something like that. Nothing is happening. Only pure sinusoidal. It oscillates neatly like this. Now, if I look at this second case, e power alpha t, e power j omega t. If I combine these two, I get different cases. Okay, this alpha is going to be equal to 0 means I get the pure waveform like this. Okay, the pure waveform. This one I'll be getting. When alpha is greater than 1, everybody with me here? When alpha is greater than 0, the waveform is going to become can you see it now? Okay, so this is what alpha is greater than 0 for e power alpha t multiplied with e power j omega. We can write it because this is an exponential complex number, therefore it can be written as like this. Can you recall this alpha plus j omega, which is nothing but e power st? Remember, s is equal to alpha plus j omega. Laplace, we learned this already. Okay, e power alpha j omega. So the waveform right now, what I am talking about here is like this. Primarily because I am multiplying this waveform, exponentially increasing this waveform with this pure sinusoid, this one. So naturally, what I end up in is something like this. This kind of a waveform is what I end up. So this is called exponentially increasing wave. But if you look at this case, immediately you can identify one thing. Okay, if I'm going to sample this waveform, what do I get? I get samples something like this. Positive, negative samples I may get. If I equally, uniformly sample this waveform, I may get positive, negative samples. Think about it. Okay, the same manner, when alpha is less than 0, e power alpha t dot e power j minus j omega t. What do I get? Can somebody imagine this waveform clearly? It's going to be okay, just opposite of it. So the waveform is going to be more like, can you see it clearly? Damping, it's called damping, damper. Okay, it's more like an underdamped kind of response. So naturally, e power alpha t, e power j omega t, when alpha is less than 0, you're going to have an exponentially decaying waveform. Exponentially minus 3t, e power minus 2t. This kind of waveform is what I'm talking about right now. Everybody with me, this slide, any doubt? Any doubt? All these waveforms clear? 3 waveforms, real, complex. Under the complex, you have 3 cases. When alpha equal to 0, you're going to get this. When alpha is equal to positive, you're going to get this. When alpha is equal to less than 0, I'm going to get this. 3 waveforms. Okay? 3 conditions, complex exponentials. Now look at this. So if you look at these 3 functions, okay, I have got 3 waveforms. The first one, I call it as the blue color one, it is e power minus t. E power minus 2t is like this, e power minus 3t. So this is e power minus t. This is e power minus 2t. This is e power minus 3 pi t. Okay, pi t. Can you see it? Can you see when I increase in the negative side? Okay, the transition rate, the signal is coming closer, coming down. See, at a much faster rate it is coming down. The signal. Okay, from the, look at the slope here. Okay, there is a sluggish slope here, and this slope is much faster, much faster. So if you look at the slope of the signal, how fast it's coming down. Okay, within on a particular time limit, within this time, short time, how much this y-axis is changing. Okay, that slope. Okay, so if you look at these 3 cases, for minus 1t, it is somewhat slower, and for minus 2t, much faster, minus 5t is much faster, but in the decaying side, okay, not in the increasing side, it's decaying. Decaying exponential. So easily you can draw this. So now I will tell you one important point, note down this, okay. Visit this website. And our institute, university, has in fact bought the license for MATLAB. And under this license, students and faculty members can enjoy the complete package free of cost, okay, because we have paid money already. So under mathworks.com, there is a provision for online MATLAB. Just you can contact the people over here and get this account. And you can, using internet, you can connect to MATLAB through the cloud sources. You need not, your computer need not have the MATLAB. You understand? Cloud service. You need not download completely the MATLAB package. Okay, using it on your computer, it's need not required. Right now, I can understand many of you may not be having the laptop, or it's difficult for you to get the what do you call MATLAB software. Okay, maybe you can use the cloud service. Use it the website mathworks.com. Okay, and then online MATLAB you type. So that's a key point today I would like to say. So get the account and try to start using MATLAB and start learning things. Whatever I'm going to get MathWorks. Okay. So now today I'll show you one demonstration. And you appreciate the advantage of the MATLAB. It's a very powerful tool. There's no doubt about it. So this is a MATLAB environment. Okay, so I got some demonstrations for you. First thing is I'm running this code. Okay, look at this code here. So this window, right now I'm projecting this window. There are three windows. One is this point. You can see the folders, whatever you have, and this point is called workspace. Okay, this portion called workspace, wherein whatever variables you are using, it will be stored here. And this portion you call it as a command window. Okay, wherein you can run your code. And this portion you call it as an editor window, wherein you can write your code and you can edit it, and you can store it like a script file. It's called new script file. For example, I want to create a new script file. I can click this. I can write my code and I can store it with a particular name. For example, I have written a code here. Okay, so here what it states exactly. What's the first line saying? T is equal to 0, 0.012. What does this exactly mean? It exactly means that I'm looking for a particular increment of t. T is stored in the form of a vector here, and 0.01 is an increment. Up to maximum limit 2 it will be stored. Now I'm going to take these t values and plug it in a function called exponential function. -1t, -2t, -5t. That's what a graph I have shown you. So these are the three functions I have. Simply plot the time t for various values of time t. The function f1. The three exponential functions I can plot. Title three functions at once. I get the label x labeled. The x-axis labeled as the time, and it's showed in form of a grid, and I can some legend I can use. Okay, exponential 1, exponential 2. If I run this code, okay, if I run this code, go to the editor mode and just simply run. If I run this code, I can see this graph. Okay, you can see the graph clearly. Okay, up to time 2 I have taken, and the values whatever taken I have taken now, these are also 0.01 difference between 2 points. Okay, so all those values I have taken, I have plotted it for various values of t. So this is a graph I have shown. This is how you need to plot the exponential. So now you can, using this code, you can vary the exponential values. For example, I can put -10t, and I can study immediately the response. Okay, maybe I will take out this. Okay, I dock the figure. So I get the figure here immediately. Okay, so now if I change the value to -10t, if I run this code again, you can see this is -10t. So initially it was at -5. You can see there is a variation. So if I put -20t, the third one, can you see how fast it's coming down, the rate? So for -4, the second one, I'm changing. Second one I'm changing. Look at the second one. Can you see how it is changing? Much faster rate. -3, almost near to -4. Okay, you can vary the values and you can study intuitively how these signals are behaving. Okay, so that's the power of simulation softwares. You can always use simulation softwares to study different signals and systems with much more intuitive grasp of the subject you will get by working out this. Okay, so it's important. Now look at the second case, a damped sinusoid. So again, I am taking a signal. I have taken two signals. Okay, sine 2 pi 0.3t. 0.3 is nothing but the corresponding frequency. Okay, 2 pi f. 2 pi f. These two are the values. So f is what? If f is equal to 1, it means 1 cycle per second. If it is 0.3, in 1 second, how much? Yeah, it's exactly that. Okay, so it's going to reach only 0.3 of that full cycle. So that's the idea. So I'm increasing the frequency from 0.3 to 0.6. I'm multiplying the sine signal with the exponential signal. I'm again multiplying the sine signal with the exponential signal like this. So we have already learned that. How. So this is the kind of signal I'm talking about. Okay, multiplying an exponential, a decaying exponential with e power j omega t, or an increasing exponential with j power j omega t. Okay, so you can do that. This is increasing. This is decreasing. So we are going to get something like this in this case. If I run this code, you can see here clearly. Dock it. Can you see it? First one is what? Much reduced frequency, 0.3. Second one, increasing frequency, because between 0 to 20, you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 samples you're getting, 6 cycles you're getting. Here, more number of cycles, the same time cycle, same time period. 20, here it's also 20. Then what do? I'm taking this signal and I'm multiplying with an exponential decaying waveform, -0.5. I'm going to get this. If I do that for this with -0.3, -0.3t, the same signal with -3t, I'm going to get this. Okay, do you understand? That's this waveform I'm talking about. See, this is sine, samples of sine. So this is a waveform. I'm talking about this thing. Two signals, f1 and f2. f3 is what? Same f1 multiplied by -0.5. Okay, -0.5t, how it looks, we know that. -0.5t. The signal is like this. First one. Okay, more like -0.5t. You can draw that. Okay, so then I multiply that exponential with this. So if I vary the rate, for example, exponential, I'm now increasing it. -4 if I'm going to put. And I'm going to run this. Can you see the difference here? It has come down much faster. So immediately this signal is damped like this. But if I reduce it, 0.01, much slower rate. Can you see? Almost it's gradually decreasing, the same sign, but the amplitude is gradually decreasing. If I do it for 0.1 exponential, what do I get? Yeah, I'll be getting something nice. Okay, gradually decreasing. The same thing for this case. Okay, for this, instead of -3, if I put -4, much faster. But if I reduce the damping, 1, can you see it? Gradually it's now decreasing. -0.5. You get something more like this. 0.3, something like this. Can you see it? Length -0.01, almost a sine I'll be getting. Okay, so gradually. So this is the idea. So damped sinusoid they call. This is a very powerful idea. Mechanical department people, they might have been applying this for a lot of applications, particularly harmonic related applications. And for signal processing, particularly damped sinusoids, they play an important role. Control systems, aircraft dynamics studies, aircraft control, robotics control. Everywhere this kind of damped signals, sinusoidal signals we'll be talking about. Okay, particularly if the system is a second order system with integrators inside, we'll be getting this kind of responses, okay, damped responses like this. Okay, so the second one, I put 0.01. That you can see here, almost similar. I put 0.1. This kind of responses will be getting a lot. Okay, this particularly control theory, if you study, this kind of responses will be seeing a lot. So I can plot a sinusoid comfortably like this. Look at this, I've taken the time, okay? All these values of time are taken, and then plug in all those values inside the function sine. Sine is an inbuilt function in the MATLAB, so absolutely no problem. So simply put 5 times sine t, you're going to plot it, time t with y. Easily you'll be getting. Take all these examples, I'll be sharing these MATLAB files with you. Open the MathWorks account, okay, online version of it, and keep running this code and try to get more insights, okay? So this is the kind of sine wave waveform we are talking about. So you can increase the amplitude. I dock the waveform. See, docking is something like this. So if a waveform, I'm going to get it separately. If I press this dock figure, dock it means it will come inside and sit nicely. I think most of you would have seen the movie Interstellar. What is docking, man? That movie, docking. Interstellar. Have you seen the movie Interstellar? How many of you seen the movie Interstellar in the class? Watch that movie. It's nice. Okay. So in the movie, they call it as docking, means a particular portion of the rocket will go and join with the other part. Okay, docking. So docking is what here also MATLAB. You just dock it, it's going to come inside and sit nicely. The graph. So then you can vary the amplitude. For example, here it is 5. I'm varying it to 10. See what's happening. Okay, the amplitude becomes 10. Okay, it's becoming no. Yeah, here it is. I change. Sorry. I change the legend. 10. If I plug in there, you can immediately see the value becomes 10. 10 minus 10. So I can change the frequency. I make it 2 times t. See what's happening. So here we have to fix the value. Okay, maybe I put 20 here. 10. It's changing it from t to 10. Okay, so the values are like this. Then I'm just keeping it 10 times. Okay, that's all right. If I vary the time t, I need to put 2 times star. Okay, multiplication. Huh? How to use this star? Then if I do that, I'll get my waveform. Can you see it? Waveform, number of waveforms will increase. Within the same 10, initially it was 1. Okay, initially it was like this. For 10 seconds, I got almost 1.5 cycles of waveform. Now, if I increase the frequency to 2 times, okay, if I do that, I get more number of cycles within the same 10. So you can do that. Okay, you can manipulate these values and you can study the results comfortably. Okay. So that's another important point. So we'll see more about these kind of demonstrations in the coming class also. Okay. And what about similar discrete waveforms? Can you see the original time domain signal is like this, continuous time domain, and I have discretized. The samples are like this. Okay, the samples are like this. So you have 2 sine waveforms shifted a particular angle, phase shift, time shifted waveforms. I can draw this, and I add 2 waveforms, sine waveforms. I'll be getting something. Okay, we'll see all this in the coming classes. But right now, my focus is on one more thing. I would like to introduce you one more important point today's class. Something on what you call time shifting operation. Okay, look at the waveform x of t. With respect to time, look at the amplitude. The amplitude is a, and the corresponding width of the pulse is 0 to 1. Now, if I right shift by a particular value 1, what do I really mean by it? How do you express it through words? Can somebody give a try?
Delta into t minus 1 minus.
What is delta? A is amplitude, I said. A can be anywhere. It can be 1, 2, 3, anything. Okay. Now I am asking you, how do you understand the term x of t minus 1? What do you mean by it?
Time shifting.
Yeah, it's called time shifting. Okay, that's the right word is time shifting. With respect to time, what is the independent variable here? X of t. T is the independent variable. I'm doing some operation with respect to t, the independent variable, not with respect to the dependent variable. Keep that in mind. I'm not touching the dependent variable at all. The amplitude part is not getting changed at all. Only with respect to time domain, that is a time independent variable, I'm doing a shift. So if I do t minus 1, it means with respect to time, when you are traveling in time, you are at the instant 0. Okay, now the signal is existing at 0 initially. Now we are moving the signal towards the right by 1 means 1 unit you have to move from 0. That's the idea. Right shift they call it. So whatever that has happened at a time t equal to 0 in the initial phase x of t, now it is going to happen at what? Time t equal to 1. So naturally this entire signal is going to get shifted like this. And whatever that has happened at 1, now it's going to happen at 2. You understand it clearly? So naturally this is going to get a right shift like this. Now the same manner can think of the left shift also. Now instead of time t minus 1, I'm talking about t plus 1. Now it is going to get 0. Whatever has happened at 0, it's going to happen at minus 1. And whatever happened at 1, it's going to happen at what? Minus 2. Okay, the entire signal now got shifted towards the left. I can say the same signal right shifted by minus 1. I can also say that. Okay, always think like that. Okay, always think in terms of right shift. But the t naught, x of t minus t naught, this t naught can be negative or positive. If it is positive, in this case, right shift. If it is t naught is negative, in this case, it's going to be left shift. Do you understand what I'm saying? Right shift and left shift is that. But always imagine, think in terms of the right shift. Why? You're going to write the expression like this and going to say t naught is going to take positive or negative. If it is positive, right shift. If it is positive, what? Right shift. Like this, t minus 1. T naught is positive, therefore t minus 1 is going to be positive. If it is negative, it's going to be t minus minus of 1. That's become t or t plus 1, it's going to be a left shift. Okay, easily you can visualize it clearly. Okay, anybody having difficulty in understanding it? Right shift, left shift. The entire signal is moved towards the right by 1 unit. So 0 becomes 1, 1 becomes 2. That's all. Here in this case, minus 1, minus 1. Okay. Now tell me what is t minus 3 by 2? Do you compute it? At t minus 3 by 2, you equate it equal to 0. At 0, what is happening? You want to see. Then simply t equal to 3 by 2. So naturally, the 0 is going to shift it to 3 by 2. The same thing, right shift by 3 by 2. So 3 by 2, the entire width of the signal is 1. You can easily understand. 3 by 2 plus 1, I'm going to get 5 by 2. Or otherwise, I can say the entire thing, t minus 3 by 2, whatever I want to see at 2, I can equate it t minus 3 by 2 equal to 2, and then t equal to 2 plus 3 by 2, I'm going to get 5 by 2. That's it. Both the ways it's feasible. Okay, easily you can visualize this, what's happening. So you want to check whether the original graph, whatever t value is there, how it is going to shifted with respect to the new shift. So initially at x of t, whatever value t is going to equal to 0, you want to know what t by 3 by 2, t minus 3 by 2, then take t minus 3 by 2 and equate it to be equal to 0 and get the value of t. So whatever happened at 0, it's going to happen at 3 by 2. Okay, that's the idea. So it's called right shift and left shift. Any doubt on this? Any doubt? In fact, you might have learned all this in first year itself. Okay, particularly in physics, I'm not sure. I think electric circuits also you'll be learning all this. Okay, voltage signal getting shifted. V of t plus 2. Periodic waveforms, all those you would have learned. But again, we'll be seeing all those things. Okay, I'll stop here. Any doubts? So far, any doubts? Okay, if there are no doubts, I'll stop here. Again, we'll see you tomorrow. Okay.